Thank you, everybody, for coming. We will have our players here available at about 1:30 or so. We're practicing at 2 o'clock. Obviously, a really exciting time of year. I was on the radio this morning just kind of talking about falls in general. To me, have always just been a fun time. Football, school starting, season starting, but as we work our way to a little bit colder weather is basketball time, and it's a fun time for me and our team as well. We are, I believe, almost 85% renewed in our season tickets. We did a little season ticket, select a seat event last night. Sold almost 100 new tickets to the people that came. We're still offering our suite deals and continuing to kind of get calls on that. Our women's walkthrough is set up for October the 3rd. I've talked a little bit about that. We're excited as far as how that's progressing with the sponsors we have and the signups that we kind of have so far. And then our Cherry and Silver game is going to be on October the 12th. That's obviously been a pretty big date, whether you call it the Lobo Howl or the Cherry and Silver game or whatever that is kind of labeled as. It's a pretty cool event to kind of get things going. So we're a couple of weeks away from that as well. Couple of just kind of player notes. Daniel Headings is a freshman from Alaska. He's one player that right now has an injury. He has a back injury. He's going to be out. You will not see him at practice today. We don't know the extent of it. Might be something that clears up here in the next few weeks. Might be something that kind of keeps him out a little bit longer. Keith McGee will also not be at practice today. Keith is, like many young men, kind of working through the trials and tribulations of life, and currently needs to focus a little bit more on academics than basketball. So Keith is not going to be here today and probably won't be here for a little bit if you guys keep coming to practices over the near term here as he spends more time on his studies. So those are just kind of two quick little player updates. Recruiting obviously is in full swing. We've had a lot of visitors in here throughout the fall. Had some more here this past weekend for New Mexico State. That was this past weekend, right? New Mexico, yeah. So it's been going really well. We're on the verge, we feel, of some really, really big commitments that would, catapult us in some big ways. We're still just kind of working on those, and hopefully that will continue to kind of help us kind of build our program. So that's just a little bit about some player stuff, some events coming up, and then obviously the team. So if any of you guys have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
The early eye test, gut feeling.
Yeah.
What do you feel? What do you see?
I think any coach in any sport prior to a season is going to be optimistic. It's just the natural part of it. Every football team before the opener is going to have a great season. Every basketball team obviously feels the same way. I think if you remove yourself from that and just the emotion that goes into it, and you just really look at what we have a lot. And we have a lot of depth. We have a lot of foot speed. We have a lot of experience. We have a lot of things that maybe over the past however many years of Lobo basketball, different teams have had different things. We have a lot. We've worked really hard to get to this point. We've obviously had some bumps to get to this point, but right now, in this very moment, I and we feel really good about what we have.
Coach, when you take a look at what you have and expectations of what they are around this program, do you always feel like you have to give people a sense of pumping the brakes a little bit and let's just see what we got? Or?
I don't think that's something I can control anyways. Andy Katz, whoever else, there's things that go out there. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. At the end of the day, internally, what we can control and what we do is really all I try and concern myself with, and our guys. Now, they're different than me. I'm an older adult, a little bit further along in life. They're younger, probably more impressionable, read way more of that stuff than I do. So spending more time with them on that might be something to think about. But quite honestly, all summer and all fall, I've never felt anything from these guys other than a serious commitment to having a very good season, independent of who says something good or bad about us.
Coach, JJ came here with kind of a spotty past.
Yep.
I'm curious, how has he done since he's gotten here? Like, how's he fit into the team? What do you see out of him?
Yeah. I was having dinner with Quan last night, and I think he might have done it maybe in one of Jeff's maybe an interview. I don't know who exactly did it, but he said, Coach, I don't think I've ever played with somebody on my team, high school, Huntington Prep, Ohio State, who is a better passer than me, but he's better than me, and it's hard for me to admit, but gosh, he can really, really pass. So I've really tried to pair those guys a lot here in the fall, and then as you guys will kind of see in practice, so that those two can really develop a good chemistry with each other. JJ obviously has an ability to really, really impact us and have a big influence on not only our team, but just individual players and them playing well. He's such a pass-first player. I think the guys just love playing with him. So feel really good about what he's going to be able to do, for our team. And so far, he's been great to coach and just kind of be around, not only for me, but I think everyone else as well.
What's the focus for these first few days of practice? What do you want to accomplish and say, okay, now we can move on to?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is going to be to make sure we harness all of our energies in the right way, which to me right now is playing good defensive basketball. We're very skilled offensively. We have a lot of very talented players that are going to do certain things, some good, some bad. But that, to me, there's enough there. We'll work through that. I can't have whatever goes on at that end impact what happens on the defensive end, or whatever goes on with expectations like Van talked about or whatever. We can't let any of that ever impact how hard we compete on defense. And that's really all I've impressed upon them here in this fall, which has been kind of limited. But then even today going forward, it's going to be, look, guys, we all have a variety of different skill sets and things, but it can't ever remove from the fact that we all have to commit and defend. And I kind of said it on the radio this morning. That was the most impressive thing to me about the Nevada teams that I've gone against here for the last 2 years. Those Nevada teams were a lot of things. They were transfers or talented or this or that. But at the end of the day, what made them great to me was they always competed on defense. No matter what, they were a very competitive defensive team. And to juggle that on a team that's in the top 25 or has this player, has that player, has this coach or that coach, I always really admired. And I've told that to our guys, that no matter what goes on with our team, with expectations or who's from where or what star or whatever else, we've got to learn to compete defensively at a championship level.
Last year when I asked about Lyle and how him missing the season was going to affect the team, you talked about obviously the point guard position, but more so the defense. Him being back this year and now officially 100% there, where is he going to help you the most?
He probably helps most in ways that the basketball is a basketball. Probably like I just told Will with JJ. Like JJ is going to do all the things he does on the basketball court. I think his biggest value, aside from what he can do on the court, which is some amazing things, is just going to be his experience and his leadership off the court. In my group chat with the players, he's about the only one that's putting other stuff in there as well. When we start or finish practice, he's about the only one that's really has the confidence, the experience to really talk to the team how it needs to be talked to. Now, that's part of what I've told them. We need more than that. We need more guys that have the confidence and the security to address teammates, and not always in a confrontational way, but in a leadership way. And he has that. And I think that, to me right now, is by far his biggest contribution. Again, independent of the fact he's a phenomenal basketball player. He's going to do a lot of great things that I think people will see how talented he is. But right now, by far, what he's doing with these guys off the court and with our group, kind of not necessarily chemistry-wise, but just commitment-wise, has been tremendous.
Follow up on the JJ stuff. You guys didn't have a point guard last year, really. What kind of specifically does having a point guard and what you want to do? How does the point guard help? Why was it so important? And why did it end up being such an Achilles heel last year that not having one
Yeah.
created on both sides of the court?
Yeah, I think obviously offensively last year our turnover numbers were bad. The poorest I've ever had as a head coach. And when you turn over the ball at that kind of a rate, you put an immense pressure on your defense and immense pressure on a lot of things. You're not even going to get into a good rhythm offensively. And then when you have games where maybe the team isn't pressuring you enough, or you can work your way through it and scheme your way through it, you're going to be great. but by and large, those things kind of catch up to you. You know, whether it's a quarterback or a running back or someone that's coughing up the ball, it's hard to ever really get into a good rhythm. And, you know, my first year here, regardless of what we did, we really took good care of the basketball. We got shots on the rim. We played a traditional brand of basketball. And last year, we just got into really hard time getting into any rhythm at either end of the court because we just turned it over so much. And I think that's probably what got us the most. And then what comes with, I think, the guard play is inevitably players not being able to do what they're really good at doing, not being able to get Carlton Bragg the ball, not being able to get Vance Jackson the ball, not being able to get even Corey Manigault the ball, like guys who are in or skilled at certain things, getting them the ball in certain places. And there's a lot more smiles probably this year playing with a guy like JJ who is setting this guy up for an alley-oop or this guy for a shot, and it just kind of lends itself to a lot of other good things as well. Right now, obviously Drew's back, you know, and I think, you know, we were all probably pretty hard on Drew just because he was a freshman and wanting him to take that mantle right away. But I think another year into the program, he has an ability to do it. Obviously, Jaquan is someone that has played it and will play it for us as well. Kirk Curry's a kid we brought in who has immense upside. I'm very excited about what he's going to do in his career here, but he's another guy that can play point guard. And we also want to look at Zane there a little bit. He's a guy that's played there. So I think we have our primary guys and then some secondary guys, but it's obviously a much different list than last year.
The only name that you didn't mention there that I thought played point guard last year was Keith.
Yeah, and not that he will not play there, but I think on that depth chart of the guys I mentioned, it's probably not something that he's ahead of those guys at this point.
And just with all those names, Coach, it seems like the team's just so incredibly deep going into the year. I mean, obviously, you're going to see some things play out, but what are you most looking forward to as far as what the luxuries you have in the depth?
Yeah, no, I didn't even really think much about it either, but I was actually having dinner with Jaquan last night, and I was like, what's the biggest difference between this team and the Ohio State team you were on? And we talked about culturally or this or that. I was like, well, let's talk about the players. He goes, Coach, the depth on this team is just, it would smother those Ohio State teams. It's just so much depth, and it just gives you a lot of advantages with regards to playing guys, with regards to minutes, with regards to foul trouble doesn't end the game. I mean, last year, everyone made a big deal of, well, and it rightfully so was a big deal of me getting a technical foul for the charge at half court or whatever. But like part of my madness is my starting point guard just picked up another foul. Like if a foul occurred to a certain player last year, it would literally impact the entire game plan. And we should be able to go into it now having this depth of like, we can just go play. And if it happens to be this guy's night or that guy's night or whatever, we can roll with it a little bit and not have to just drastically alter things and switch to zone because this kid's not eligible and this kid isn't as good as you thought. You know, we have a lot more kind of tools and hopefully it'll allow us to be just more robust as an overall unit.
Coach, we all saw what Vance did in Las Vegas last
Yep.
year. And you had mentioned after the game that there was matchups. How do you create those matchups for him so he can impact the game like he did last year against Wyoming and against Utah State?
Yeah, I think particularly on the offensive end of the floor this year, these players are going to have a lot more freedom to kind of be their players. I think last year, with the limitations at point guard, with the limitations of just having a couple of guys that we knew could be scorers, we were scheming all game long, way more than I ever really want to. I like to play a much more free-flowing offense with reads and concepts as opposed to that last year, which was much more, we're going to run this and this and this and this and this and kind of get bogged down in that. And that's the first time I ever had to coach that way, really on both ends of the court. In hindsight, I probably wouldn't have done it, but at the time I felt it gave us our best chance to win. I worked through it, but I really feel like we're back now to being able to just play offensively. We have great players. We teach them good concepts. We run some offensive systems that are obviously geared to them and their strengths, but I don't want to get bogged down in this is the only way we're going to get Vance Jackson a shot. When you put really good players out there with good spacing and good reads and good just offensive schemes in general, I think those players will be able to kind of thrive in that environment as opposed to everybody that we're playing against is worried about Vance and we're trying to get Vance. Let's just let the game organically flow and allow those players to kind of emerge that way.
Coach, is this year going to be maybe a little bit easier because pretty much everybody I talked to for the last 3 or 4 weeks, they can tell you right now who the 4 people are going to be that are starting.
Yeah.
And then at point guard is the question mark. Does that make it easier for you though to kind of know that you have that?
For sure. Again, I was on the radio this morning, so I'm regurgitating some of this. But, yeah, and even more so than I thought. You know, we practiced Monday, Tuesday this past week. We took the last 2 days off, and then we're going today. And, you know, I put them in groups and lineups, and even as that unfolds, it's like, yeah, like, those are the better players. You know, like, you kind of got a feel for that. And we haven't had that, you know, and not that that's necessarily a bad thing. You know, sometimes you embrace the team concept, the idea that 1 through 11 are equal and we're going to do it that way. But the reality is this team is different. We have some players that are very, very good, and we're going to have to utilize them that way. And it just takes a lot of pressure off of probably all of us knowing, hey, we do have some guys that can carry us a little bit. And we haven't had that. We haven't had someone that just went out and won us a game, or a group of guys that were just, you know what, it didn't come down to whether I could coach or he could coach. We were fortunate enough to have that kid on the floor, and we've dealt against that. We've had the kid go off for this amount of points or this amount of things, or someone that really just drastically impacted the game against us, and you want to overcome that as a team, and I thoroughly believe you can overcome that as a team. But it's always nicer to have those guys that can go do that once in a while and maybe overcome a bad stretch or a bad game.
What is going through your head? I'm thinking, like, if we when we were talking to you about a year ago, there would have been like no doubts about the style of basketball a Coach Weir's team has.
Yeah.
Because we'd seen you as a head coach, New Mexico State here, and then you just mentioned how in order to try and give yourself the best opportunity to win last year, you kind of went outside that
Yeah.
a little bit offensively. One of the things that you kind of hung your hat on, you keep talking about defense, but is the philosophy that you had when you got here of being pretty much a pressing team on
Sure.
all made baskets and even on some misses,
Yeah.
that had to get adjusted last year too.
Yeah.
So do you go in this year being open-minded about that, or do you go into this year saying, this is the way
Yeah.
I do things?
No, we basically what we've done is kind of, and we've worked on it this summer and fall, and I love it. I mean, again, I was at dinner last night with one of our players saying, Coach, this is amazing. Like, we've basically just kind of morphed it exactly to where it just fits who we have, and it fits a lot of their strengths, and we feel great about it. The pressure we're going to have this year, the level that it's going to be at, and then who's in what spots of the press. You know, we're able to put our smarter, intelligent guys in certain positions that are going to be kind of readers, and our more physical, athletic guys in pressure positions, and we've kind of morphed with it. And I'm really, Kevin Mackey's coming in again. He's going to come in about a week, and I've told him I need you to pick this thing apart so we can keep tinkering with it. But I love where we're at with the press. There's got a lot of stuff that fortunately Dan's brought with him. It's some stuff that Seton Hall did, some stuff that Rick Pitino did, which is a little bit of a different style press than maybe we've had, but it's still kind of the same concept of pressure, depth, speed, wearing people down over the course of a game, and I'm really excited about that part of it right now.
Coach, the more you teach, the more you coach. And I don't know if you document it or you evaluate in such a way where this is the question you can answer. How have you improved since day one of this experience?
Yeah, gosh, I could be here a long time with that one, Henry. All I've tried to do since the end of the Utah State game is get this team ready to roll as best as we possibly can for this year and have the best summer I could. I've read more books than I've ever read. I've met with more coaches than I can ever think of, business CEOs, whatever, you name it. I've tried to become the best I can be and then work through as many different logistics in our program to make sure that they're improving, get with each of our players, make sure they're improving, and just do everything I possibly can to improve myself in order to make kind of our team better.
There's been a lot of talk about the guards, but as far as your bigs are concerned, how do you like that depth and there, and because you know, like even a guy like Carlton, he's had a year to get the rust off, and you can see it coming off at the end of last year.
You know, our depth up front, admittedly, is not great. I'm not going to pretend that it is. It's enough right now, though, and it's very good right now. I think Corey Manigault on the left block is maybe the best low post offensive player in our league. I think Carlton Bragg, after having to sit out for as long as he did and then get through the year, I think can be among the best centers in our league. And I think those two as a combo, there's some really good centers in our league. There's some really good post players in our league. But when you look at who's next to them or who's behind them, I really feel like as a combo, we're there with anybody in our conference. So with that, the depth of it I don't love, but what we have, as long as it stays healthy and stays engaged, I think we can compete with anybody in the league. And we did that kind of taking a little bit of a risk, loading up on some more guards to make sure we had all the guards we needed so that we would never run into being shorthanded there. And I think that coupled with each other makes us a really dynamic team.
Have you kept in touch with Anthony, and what's your thoughts on the scrimmage against Oregon?
Have not spoken to Anthony. I'm not allowed to discuss that scrimmage. Excited about the opportunity to play a great team. I think the beautiful thing about these scrimmages is teams that ordinarily wouldn't play New Mexico will play New Mexico. And that's the best part about it selfishly for me.
Coach, you mentioned a lot of names, and I'm not sure what the rotation might be, but do you have enough basketballs?
It's a great question.
You have in the backcourt?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I mentioned at the beginning. I think offensively, whatever happens there, it can never affect how we compete at the defensive end. And like I said, like I have seen a unique team, a very unique team in this conference over the last 2 years in Nevada, who is a top team in the country, go through similar stuff as well. A lot of really good players that all wanted to shoot. But no matter what happened at that end, when you got down to the other end, it never affected their defense. And that's my goal with this team. I feel like I have the same problems. I have a lot of very good offensive players that are driven by that are good at that. Like, that's their strength. But it can never impact how hard we play on the defensive end. If we do that, we'll be fine. Our team will be good. But that's a great question and one that we all have to answer every day.
Today is the first official practice. What changes from the other workouts you guys have been doing, and what do you specifically look for the guys today to show you that they're really getting ready for this?
Yeah, we kind of had two little sample practices Monday, Tuesday. I was out there, a lot of the summer, fall stuff. I'm a secondary person. Monday and Tuesday we did a little more. We didn't go as long, but it was a lot of the same expectations, how it would look. Gave them a couple of days, and then today it's on. Really the length of it. In the preseason, we're allowed 8 hours a week. Now we're allowed 20 hours a week. So your practices are going to go from 60 to 90 minutes to, 180 minutes or whatever it happens to be. So that's going to be the biggest thing, is working through that. And we go twice tomorrow, and we go twice Sunday, and just building up that mental and physical capacity of, they know what it looks like. They just have to do it over a much longer stretch now.
Coach, I mean, you lost your leading scorer from last year, but I get the sense that this team's better than it was a year ago. But I'm curious, from your perspective, do you think this team's good enough to make Lobo fans in Albuquerque start to fall in love with basketball the way they used to 6, 7, 8 years ago?
I hope so. That's obviously what I've been trying to do since we got here. I think there's sometimes a big difference between what the expectation level is and then what's really actually there. And year one was such a great year because the expectation level was here, but we were a lot better than people thought. We were just better. And I think last year the flip happened, which kind of dropped it. I'm as bullish on this year's team as I was on the first year. In my first year here, I was at media day. Everyone's like, guys, I think we're better than everybody thinks. Last year, I was trying to tell everybody, like, slow down. Like, we're not that good. This year, to be quite honest with you, I'm back to, like, we're good. Like, I like this team. Do I love all those expectations it puts on for my guys? Not the greatest. But at the end of the day, that's the world we live in. I'm trying to make them a process-driven team anyways. So whether that's good or bad, if we're going to be good, we have to be invincible against it anyways. So at the end of the day, it's probably better to have higher expectations than lower, because at least it's going to give some good vibe and good energy around the outside of our program.
So the publications, 2, 3, and 4, do you pay attention to that? I know the kids probably do. They want to be as high as they can go. Do you pay attention to that? Being 2, 3, 4 seems like with the year we had last year, this is not too bad, really.
Yeah. You know, I did my first year because of all the things people said and where they put us. And I clipped them out and I put them on lockers and we used it as a us against the world mentality. I did not last year because I was like, gee, I don't want you. This is too much. Like, I didn't agree with it. And quite honestly, this year, if I had to be honest with you, I don't care. If someone picked me 9th or 1st or 11th, it wouldn't matter. I know what we have. We're really, really good. We just have to now connect and make sure we're going to go be really good. But we have that capability. I have no doubt about that. You'll spend 5 minutes in practice and realize these guys are pretty good, but that doesn't mean anything at this point. Now we have to form and merge and connect and then go out on the court and actually really do it. And I think we're all exceptionally excited to go do that. It's a very driven team, committed team that wants to go prove itself right now, myself included.
Thanks, Coach.
You got one, Jeff?
Well, can I follow up to that? I kind of mentioned this to you, but all the talent that everybody recognizes on this team pretty much puts the pressure on you as a coach then. It's on you and your
Yep.
staff to get this done because there is talent here to win. Do you agree with that? And do you talk with your coaching staff at all that this isn't so much on the players this year? You have the pieces.
Yeah. I think that's a very fair question, demand, whatever. That's the nature of the position I'm in. It is my job. So yes, if for whatever reason it doesn't, the blame should come on me. I do think though, and I said this, I think at my last presser, I think this year's team is so much different. I never, in my personality, I don't want to be the front of things. I don't want to be the one with the technical fouls. I don't want to be the one sitting up here taking the heat all the time. And I felt like on last year's team, I just had to do it. I was the one that had to take the blame for everything, and I have no problem doing that because inevitably I should. But this year's team is different. It's not the same. There's a lot more just competitiveness, fierceness, wanting to win. It's just different. There's leadership. It's just different. And I don't think that will come into question maybe as much as it did last year, even though as maybe rightfully so it should, because I just think the makeup is different. It's the closest thing to my first year coaching 3 hours south. It's the closest thing I've had to that as far as just a group of competitive, driven men that want to win. And I'm not necessarily irrelevant, but I'm secondary to that, and I love that. I don't want to be primary. I don't want to be here sitting saying, I'm going zone, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that, or I'm getting technical fouls. It's about them and their ability to hopefully win as opposed to lose. So, yeah. Thanks, guys.
Anything else? Okay.
Good?